Hello, health coaches. I'm excited to be here with you. I just had an article come across my desk, and it says work stress is the number one threat to employee mental wellness per a report that just came out. So this is from WellHub's State of Work-Life Wellness Report. And it's interesting because they did this survey, and they surveyed 5,000 global employees between May and June 2024, so very recent, for the State of the Work-Life Wellness Report. Work-life wellness. Isn't that a nice little twist on the language? Work-life wellness, work-life balance. And it revealed several noteworthy findings. Hi, I'm Erin Power. I'm a health coach, a health coaching educator and mentor, and your host of Health Coach Radio. This podcast delves into the art, science, and business of health coaching. Whether you're aspiring to land a coaching dream job or to embark on your own entrepreneurial adventure, we cover it all. Our mission is to help you grow your career, elevate your income, change the lives of the clients who need your help, and leave a lasting mark in this rapidly growing field. It's time for health coaches to make an impact. It's time for Health Coach Radio. Nearly half of those surveyed say work stress is the primary cause of their deteriorating mental health. 83% would consider leaving their current employer due to a lack of focus on well-being, a significant increase from 68% in 2022. So 83%, almost all of the employees surveyed, would consider leaving their current employer due to a lack of focus on well-being. Okay, so what does that mean? Physical health, mental health, emotional health. You see where this is going. You see where health coaches can come in and help, right? Corporate wellness, I know, is something that a lot of coaches are very interested in. Survey findings like this are extremely powerful. Imagine applying to a corporate wellness job posting, and you have this kind of data available to you. You can track this down, right? I always get my health coaching news from athletetechnews.com. athletetechnews.com. It's great. It's a great repository of this kind of article. But imagine bringing this kind of information to a job interview, to an application process if you wanted to go and work in corporate wellness. A sizable amount of employees, 88%, literally just about everyone, say well-being support is as important to them as their salary. 89% of employees say they will only consider companies that prioritize employee well-being when seeking a new employer. Guys, this is huge for us. This is immense for us. Well-being in the workplace, right? This is preventative health, right? Preventative health. A lot of health coaches want to get into the preventative health space, right? And this is truly preventative health. Let's get people at work where they're struggling the most and fold these sort of health supporting endeavors into the workforce. And then the workforce improves, and employers love that, and insurance companies love that. And, the individual feels better. They feel like they're being seen and supported by their employer. They feel more empowered and inspired to come into work and do a good job, and they have more to give to their families afterwards. It is all upside. So really, really powerful statistics. I'll just give you those few statistics again. 47% of those surveyed say work stress is their primary cause of deteriorating mental health. 83% would consider leaving their current employer due to a lack of focus on well-being. 88% say well-being support is as important to them as their salary. And 89% say they will only consider working for companies that prioritize employee well-being. Wild. Big numbers. I can't imagine how much that's skyrocketed over the years, right? So something to inspire you and empower you if you wanted to get into corporate wellness. All right, speaking of inspiring and empowering, I got some inspiring and empowering questions today. And actually, I wanted to kick off with an anecdote, if you will permit me, because one of the questions that came in was about pay, getting paid as a health coach. I'm going to address this, but the question was interesting because it was talking about being paid as a health coach employee, but it had a little sort of a commentary around how much a private practice health coach should make. So I want to talk about that private practice health coaching pay scale, like when you're working for yourself, how to set your price, if you will. And then I'm going to go into the question that was submitted about employee pay for a health coach. So just a small thing on what to charge if you're in private practice, because I think this is one of the most commonly asked questions I've ever gotten. And I get a lot of questions from health coaches. This has got to be right up there in top top 5 of all time asked questions. So let's just dive into a little bit about how much you can charge if you're a private practice health coach. So this is coming from me, one health coach in private practice. This is my kind of opinion. This is my point of view, and it might differ from other things you've heard. But what I want you to take away from my personal take on what to charge as a health coach is that it kind of actually empowers you to decide what you charge as a health coach, because there actually is no standard pay scale that we should be anchoring to. You get to decide. Okay. So real quick little anecdote / teaching moment on what to charge if you're a private practice health coach. That means you're going into business for yourself. You decide the price tag of your services. Now, by way of disclaimer, I will be really honest with you. Real honest share, vulnerable share for a moment here, gang. I might be one of the least equipped people to talk to you about money stuff because I'm perpetually working on my money mindset. Money mindset. Who's heard of this notion of the money mindset? You might have heard of a scarcity mindset, an abundance mindset, a prosperity mindset. There's all kinds of ways we can talk about money mindset. And I'm working on mine because I'm a Gen Xer and I came from boomer parents, and my boomer parents have this certain perspective on how you earn money and how we exchange service for paychecks. And it's kind of old school thinking. So I'm always working on this, right? Who am I to charge my clients thousands of dollars for a solution? Well, they haven't solved it on their own and I'm an expert with a solution. So yeah, I got to work on this, right? So what I can offer you, while I can't offer you the most incredible money mindset pep talk you're ever going to get, because I'm still working on mine, quite honestly, what I can offer you is some real advice. So I want to start with an anecdote. This was so interesting to me. I had a client consultation today, and she was awesome. We had such a great conversation. We really connected. She reminded me of me. It was just like a one-to-one, a mano, person-to-person conversation that was it flowed really well. And in these conversations, I often ask my prospective clients what they've tried before. Really, really important question to ask in a discovery call. You want to sort of absolve them from past failures, right? So they might say, well, I tried Weight Watchers and that worked for a while. And then you'll say, well, it worked for a while. Tell me what worked about it. And they'll say, well, I like that I could eat a variety of foods, but I didn't really like tracking my points. Cool. So you like eating a variety of foods. Great. Oh, I tried keto for a while. What did you like about keto? Well, the food was so yummy. I just found it really unsustainable when I was like on vacation and stuff. Okay, so you like protein foods, you like meat. Like we get a lot of clues from what people have tried before. So I would encourage you, this is to me is a non-negotiable part of a discovery call when you're in private practice, is going through the lessons learned from previous attempts, right? So I always have this conversation. I'm not going to mention the program that this person did, but the crazy thing is I'd never heard of this program before. And in the last 3 days, 3 different people have brought it up to me as something they've tried before. Okay. So this is a program that a private practice health coach like me created. It's a weight loss program. It's like a 90-day program. It's inexpensive. It's like $75. And you run through this program for 90 days. And there's a Facebook community associated with it. So it's like a big group program, sort of short duration, big group program, inexpensive. This person I was speaking to on the phone, she had done 4 rounds of it. So she'd invested several hundreds of dollars to do 4 rounds of it and never gotten any results, but thought, well, it's inexpensive. I mean, the barrier to entry is quite low. And what else was she going to do? So it was kind of like, I might as well keep doing it. But what was interesting was this prospective client told me that when the creator of this program that she was doing had wound up on Dragon's Den. Okay, Dragon's Den is the Canadian equivalent of Shark Tank. So you have a business and you go out in front of the sharks or the dragons, whatever the scary animal is that's of entrepreneurs that are and investors that are sitting in front of. And you pitch to get funding to leverage, launch, grow your business. To be honest with you, I've never watched an episode, but I get the gist. Okay. So the creator of this weight loss program went onto Dragon's Den and pitched to the dragons her fabulous weight loss program. And in her pitch, she mentioned to the dragons that she'd made $7.5 million last year in her weight loss business. Now, it was interesting to me, and this client mentioned this to me. She said, can you believe that this nutrition coach made $7.5 million on a $75 program last year? She said, and I paid for that 4 times. And I didn't get any results, but she made $7.5 million. It was just interesting. First of all, fascinating that somebody in our space can make that kind of money on an inexpensive program. It just goes to show you how far reach can go, because every time she runs this program, she gets like 5,000 people. I don't need 5,000 people in it. Can you imagine coaching 5,000 people? I really can't. But like, your mileage may vary. So if you had a huge audience, you could sell a $75 program and make $7.5 million. But I don't know about you. I don't have an audience like that. Like, if she's enrolling 5,000 people every quarter, she must have a very large audience, right? I don't have an audience like that. So when I price my program, which is a 6-month program, here's how I kind of figure out how I'm going to do package pricing. Because package pricing is the way to go rather than per session pricing. This is just a small little educational moment. I determine how much time the client is actually going to spend with me, and then I multiply it by what I perceive my hourly rate to be. And when I perceive my hourly rate, the first thing I do is I double it, because I'm always going to sell myself short on my hourly rate. So whatever you think your hourly rate is, $100 an hour, immediately double it. So say $200 an hour. And then work out how many hours you're actually be working on client stuff. So if you have let's say you have a 12-week program, and in the 12-week program, you do 30-minute weekly coaching call with your clients, plus maybe a 1-hour kickoff call, maybe a 1-hour exit call, and maybe you're doing 30 minutes a week of client like administration and client prep work. So in a 12-week program, you're putting in 14 hours of work on the client themselves. Multiply that by your hourly rate, $200, $2,800. That's a perfectly fine place to start with your pricing. But then here's where my advice comes in. Then you got to sprinkle in some feelings. Personally, I'm doing this work because I want an income, but I also want an impact, and I want to help people. So I go by feeling. Does this feel like the right amount? Would $2,800, does that feel right? Would $2,500 feel better? Like, do I like the idea of bringing it into the low, for some reason, $2,500 feels like low 4 figures. I don't know why. It's like a quarter of $10,000. I don't know why again, my money mindset's a little weird. Or would it feel better to bump this up to $3,000 and convey even more value? You go by feel. I think the price has to feel right. So to close the loop on this client who I spoke with today, I told her the price of my program for 6 months. I told her the price, and she said, "Oh, that's really reasonable." And I felt so good about that. I felt so good. And she signed up. So she had access to a $75 program that she had already done, and she's familiar with the coach, and this coach had been on Dragon's Den, and big deal. And instead, she decided to spend a lot more with me because we had a good conversation, and I could convey the value of a higher price tag. That's the thing. When I say you have to go by feel, when you practice the idea of pitching and saying that price out loud for what you offer, does it feel congruent? Because you might practice your pitch and what I offer, your offer, the solution that you offer, which I'm not going to talk about how to craft an offer in this conversation. That's a whole nother conversation. But if you have a good offer and you say it out loud and then you state the price has to match the thing you just said, the offer you just made. And you just have to do that congruency work yourself, I think. One of the bits of sort of business coaching feedback that I've received over the years that never quite sat right with me is raise your prices, raise your prices, raise your prices. Well, raise your vibration, raise your value, raise the value, improve the offer, get great results, and then the price will raise itself in a manner of speaking, but it has to feel right. Okay, that's my little kickoff lesson of the day. I hope that was helpful. All right, I'm going to get into a couple questions that were submitted, and I'm excited to. So the reason why I came up with this, how much to charge as a private practice health coach, is because Tiffany asked a question about how much you should get paid or how you should get paid as a staff health coach. So she says, we know what to expect to charge when we're seeking clients on our own, but is it normal to just get paid an hourly salary if you work for an office that hires you as a health coach? So this is an awesome, great question. I'm excited about the existence of this question because I love hearing that health coaches are working in offices as health coaches. 8 years ago, if you'd asked me if I saw this happening, I might have said, yeah, I guess maybe that could be cool. But now it's a very legitimate employment path. In fact, at Primal Health Coach Institute, we've just created a course called How to Land a Job as a Health Coach, which as far as we can tell is the only how to get a job course for health coaches that exists, because we looked for one. We tried to find one. We couldn't find one, so we made one. And in orchestrating that course, we first of all, we interviewed subject matter experts, people who hire health coaches into employment situations. What are they looking for? How can a health coach really stand out? We also did a lot of diving into the current batch of job listings. So when I was doing that research on the job listings, I was just scouring health coach job listings for literally years. I've been doing this, but I really zeroed in on it for a few months while we were creating this course. And to answer Tiffany's question, which is it normal to just get paid hourly? My answer is, it seems to be pretty normal. It seems to be pretty normal. I've literally seen it split right down the middle, hourly rate or salary, brought on as salaried staff. Now, from my research, many of the postings offering to pay hourly are kind of part-time roles, where you have a shift that you're working. And that's pretty typical. To me, that feels pretty reasonable that would be an hourly rate. I'm hoping it's a lot more than minimum wage, but I'm going to talk about how much this hourly rate is in a second. Okay. So, you are a skilled trade. If you're a well-qualified health coach with a lot of health coaching ability, you are a skilled trade in some ways. I know that sounds crazy, but I like thinking of it that way because, when I hire an electrician, I want the best electrician who's not going to, improperly wire my house, and I'll pay skilled trade wages for a good tradesperson. And I kind of, for some reason, health coaching is so interesting because it's an art, it's a science, it's kind of a trade, it's a vocation, it's a dance, it's a skill, it's a craft. There's a lot to it, right? So you should be paid what you're worth, whether it's hourly or salary. We'll talk about that in a second. If you do find one of these part-time sort of shift schedule jobs, I think it's a really neat thing for a certain type of health coach. For example, if you're a health coach that, ostensibly sees yourself going into private practice, well, starting off as an hourly employee in any kind of organization is just really great. You can pay the bills and get some health coaching practice while you build your thing on the side. So I like that idea. There was, for example, one job I saw when I was researching for this health coaching job course, and the health coaching shift was like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or something like that. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 3 days of the week, full-time day, 3 days a week. So it ended up being a 24, 30-hour work week, which is almost full-time, but it was 3 days. So you'd be hustling for 3 days on the phone with clients, but then you'd have all the rest of the days to, build your own thing if you want to. Now, what if you don't want to? If you don't want to build your own thing, you want to go get a job as a health coach, this is the most exciting thing, is there's tons of full-time jobs as health coaches coming on, and more. So I have seen some larger health coaching positions that will hire health coaches on full-time with benefits and salary. And when I see these positions, the salary ranges vary tremendously. And I have a few thoughts on that. I think that the apparent discrepancy, and I don't even know if discrepancy is the origin of this question. I don't know if Tiffany feels like maybe she's not being paid enough or what that is, but I have seen personally discrepancies in rates of pay. I've seen part-time health coaching jobs that are paying $11 an hour to, $100 an hour. I've seen salaries in the ranges of $25,000 to $125,000 or higher, right? So major discrepancy. It doesn't seem to be very uniform. That's probably the same for many industries, quite frankly. But here's where we can probably, intellectualize why we're seeing this in health coaching. First of all, health coaching is still relatively new in terms of hiring health coaches in organizations, and organizations are maybe figuring out where to slide the health coaching paycheck into their overhead cost, right? So I think about that when any organization that's growing who needs to bring on staff to help them grow has to first of all slide that staff in on kind of an hourly part-time rate to see if they can make it work. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Should we bring this person on with more hours, maybe put them in salary? So in some cases, I think if you get a role with an organization that's paying you an hourly wage, and you like it and you're getting great health coaching experience and you're feeling really called to this and this is lighting you up, I think there's something to be said about getting your foot in the door. We're very much in the getting one's foot in the door stage of health coaching as a job. So imagine getting your foot in the door of a medical clinic that then immediately sees the value of you on the staff, and they said, wow, this health coach is really getting great patient outcomes. Let's bring them on full time, full benefits. You might become part of the middle management or senior leadership someday. You never know. Maybe you become the head health coach, right? I love the idea of this, of health coaches going into the workforce, because the workforce has opened up to us now, and showing these organizations how health coaching makes a difference in patient or client outcomes. And then those organizations bolstering the health coaching arm of the business, and you becoming one of these sort of early adopters, one of these early staff members, employee number one on the health coaching team. Another factor kind of similar is that health coaching is working its way into becoming a proven part of an allied health team. And so as our importance becomes more clear, more staffing budget and hours will be allocated to us. The other thing is that there's a wide range of employers. This really wowed me when I was researching this. You might have an employer who's an influencer, who goes on Dragon's Den and makes $7.5 million a year and just needs co-coaches to manage their 5,000 person coaching program. I've seen some of these influencers, scoff as we might at the online influencer. Some of these folks are making fat stacks and have big payrolls. You could become the second in command to an influencer health coach and be making $150,000 a year supporting their business. Pretty cool. I literally saw a job like that when I was researching for our health coaching jobs course. Or you might end up going to work for an altruistic, maybe a regional health organization. Maybe this feels important to you. Maybe you live in a medium, small community, and the local doctor's office is trying to create an integrative model to help the citizens of the community. And, those regional health organizations probably have tightly controlled and allocated budgets. So you might get in there with kind of a lower hourly wage, and that just might be an aspect of that part of the industry, right? So I know that the range of pay is astronomical. It ranges tremendously, but we all can find something that fits in with what we want to be doing with our lives as a health coach, whether it's part-time or full-time. You want salary plus benefits, or you just kind of want an hourly wage, or you want to become part of something. You want to get on the ground floor of something that's going to grow. There is nothing but opportunity in front of us. Nothing but opportunity. This is one of the greatest times to try to get a job as a health coach. By the way, our How to Land a Health Coach job course tells you exactly how to do that. We wanted to prepare health coaches to seek out the job postings that were legitimate, that were asking for the right thing, and know how to apply for them. And there's opportunities abound for all of us. But to answer your question, Tiffany, I think it's perfectly normal to be on as an hourly employee. I hope you're being paid fairly for the work you're doing. I hope you're getting a great deal of experience and helping lots and lots of people. I'm really excited that you have this job, actually. And I hope that you're excited about it too. Are you a health coach who wants more hands-on coaching training? Are you thinking about becoming board certified? Primal Health Coach Institute's Master Coach Certification Program checks both of those boxes. It's live, so you get to ask questions as you go. And we cap the number of students for each round so you get individualized attention and plenty of opportunity to practice your coaching skills with faculty and peers. Coaches become great with experience. And this course fast tracks that educational experience so you don't have to spend years learning directly from clients. You'll know exactly how to coach for optimal results in just 12 weeks. It also prepares you to sit for the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaches exam so you can become a board-certified health coach. We only offer this certification program twice a year, and it fills up fast. So be sure to learn more at primalhealthcoach.com and reserve your seat soon. All right, my next question is from Annalie, and this is cool because this is a client question, sort of navigating maybe like a client who is pushing back. So client relations, always an interesting one. She says, so many people say they aren't able to eat breakfast and aren't hungry in the morning, but it's a vital part of my program. How do you deal with this? She goes on to say, I'm a born people pleaser, so when people push back on my coaching ideas and are firm about it, I feel the need to just agree. So this is cool. Annalie and I have a similar approach, it sounds like. Now, I also encourage my clients to eat breakfast. And I just want to start by saying you might not, and that's okay. Right? These are just examples, right? You might be an intermittent fasting coach. You might think breakfast is a goofy construct. For Annalie, for myself, for other people, we encourage breakfast. And you know what's beautiful about that? Everyone's mileage may vary. And there's a health coaching client for all of us. There's the clients who need to skip breakfast. There's the clients who need to eat breakfast. Annalie and I have clients who need to eat breakfast. So you describe this as a crucial part of your methodology, but when people push back on it, you kind of fold. So I want to really articulate the leadership role of a health coach and how we stand in that leadership role, which frankly our clients are expecting of us. So coaching is a partnership that's built on trust and is not a boss-subordinate relationship. So the coach isn't the boss, and the client's not the subordinate who follows along with whatever the coach says, and also vice versa. The client is also not the boss. It is a partnership. That being said, the health coach is in a leadership role, and the health coach is the person in the relationship with the expertise and the solution. So when I say that you have the expertise and the solution, you know a thing or two about how you want this person to eat. In this case, you believe strongly that they should eat breakfast. Let's not forget the client also has expertise. The client has the expertise of what they will and won't do. And I made that sound a little more petulant than I meant for it to. Clients aren't being naughty. They're not pushing back on us to be bratty about it. They just have beliefs. They come to us with long-standing beliefs about how, when, and what to eat and why, or how to exercise, how to move, how to sleep, how to stress, all the things that they're struggling to unwind and unpack and they need our help with. They have a lot of preconceived beliefs, a lot of programming. So just on its face, you can see that there's a ton of compromise required in a coaching relationship, right? You're an expert, and so is the client. You might, if you both insist on being the expert, you'll butt heads, so there has to be some compromise. And as the leader of the relationship, it's your job to facilitate compromise, which doesn't mean that you back down, because you backing down and people pleasing is not a compromise. That's you backing down and the client, they're winning. Not a great choice of words, but we don't want to put the client into the boss role and you into the subordinate role. People pleasing is not a compromise. And by the way, I don't think, and you know this, Annalie, because you self-identify quite honestly as a people pleaser, you already know that people pleasing doesn't serve anyone. It doesn't make anyone better. No one gets better if they get what they want without a bit of compromise. In some ways, we're training ourselves and training the other people in our lives to compromise with us. Compromise is literally a two-person dance. So when you back down, you're not facilitating the opportunity to compromise. So, do you believe, this is a rhetorical because I don't think Annalie's on the call. She might be. But do you believe that breakfast is crucial for your clients, or is it just kind of a nice thing to have? If they want to skip over it, that's completely fine. Okay? So you have to ask yourself, how crucial is breakfast? Is it like, this is a foundational pillar of my course, of my program? This is a foundational pillar? Or it's just something neat that I like to try to get people to do if they want to? If the answer to this thought experiment is, no, this is like a non-negotiable, like my whole program is built with this pillar in place. I need my clients to eat breakfast. It's non-negotiable. We must focus on it no matter what. Then you bring that energy into the relationship when you compromise with your client. So it can't be, okay, we'll skip the breakfast thing, Sally. You're right. I'm sorry, Sally, to have put you out with the breakfast thing. It can't be that, because then you're compromising on something that you contemplate to be a foundational principle of your methodology. And that's not an appropriate compromise. Here's what I think is an appropriate compromise. How can we make this breakfast thing, which is non-negotiable, how can we make it doable? Right? So we just get down into the brass tacks of like good old habit change. So instead of no breakfast, it's like, what's the smallest amount of breakfast we can agree on? Just from the perspective of habit change, I'm personally a really big fan of BJ Fogg's approach to habit change. So his book, Tiny Habits. I really like that book because I think it's more pertinent for what we do. Because I think when we work with clients, we are working with people who are resistant to change or have tried a lot of change and haven't had success with change. So we have to get them feeling these tiny little successes, the small, quick win. Okay, so if the objective is Sally eats breakfast 7 days a week, what's the smallest amount of breakfast we can get Sally to eat? Sally, can you have breakfast on Sunday? How about if we have breakfast on Sunday this week? And Sally could have breakfast on Sunday every week because she agrees. She's in an agreement with you. She signed on the dotted line. She signed the client agreement. Part of your client agreement is the client shows up and does the work. And part of the client agreement is I, the coach, I move with you. We work together in partnership. It wouldn't be a good partner relationship if you let Sally steamroll you away from this breakfast idea. That's not a good partnership. And Sally didn't agree to that. She agreed to being in a partnership with you. So break the breakfast down into the smallest doable thing. I would not. I have a similar methodology as you do, Annalie, where my clients eat breakfast. And I would not allow my clients to say, no, I don't want to do that. I would say, let's see if we can do a small amount of it. What's the smallest thing you can do? Is it 1 day a week? Is it, if there are parameters around the breakfast, is it like, for me, my clients, I want them to have a protein dominant breakfast. If they're right now currently having oatmeal and waffles, and I want them to have maybe a couple eggs, it's like, can you have an egg instead of the waffle? Or an egg instead of the oatmeal? Can we throw an egg in there and take one of those other things away? We're going to break it down into tiny, tiny increments. And I do think there's power in these tiny, tiny increments. So what happens over time then is if Sally can do breakfast, let's say she agrees to try it on Sunday. Then you have your next weekly coaching call. Sally had a breakfast go on Sunday. She'll say, well, I managed it okay. And she'll talk about it. All right, Sally, can we try that again? Same thing, breakfast on Sunday. I would hang with that for a while, until Sally starts to notice whatever you expect the outcome to be. So, for example, I get my clients to eat breakfast because when they have a substantial breakfast, their appetite and their cravings and their mindless eating spontaneously diminishes. And for my clients, that's immense. That is such an immense win. They're bouncing off the walls. They're screaming from the mountaintops. They're so excited that their mindless snacking went away. So I want my client to experience what it feels like to be well fed so the mindless snacking goes away. If your client does this on Sunday, she might notice, I had that big breakfast on Sunday morning and then I didn't really have sugar cravings that day. I wasn't really nibbling and snacking all day like I usually do. And over time, if you put down enough reps, the client's going to make the correlation. Like when I eat breakfast, I don't munch all day long. And I can see why munching all day long is maybe holding me back from my health goals. So perhaps this breakfast thing, maybe there's some magic there. So I do think there's something to be said. I do really believe that health coaches have to try to get their clients some kind of quick win. That's the way I describe it. So what is the thing, if they go run this experiment that you've asked them to run, breakfast on Sunday, what is the data that they need to bring back from that experiment and report to you? Okay, so you might say, Sally, what if we just had breakfast 1 day this week? Sunday. How does Sunday feel? Sally will collaborate on that. You're not telling Sally that it's Sunday. You'll come to an agreement. Let's say you come to an agreement that it's going to be Sunday. Once you've kind of established the parameters of the goal, you might say, what I'd really like, Sally, if you're okay with it, is to just keep track of how your appetite and cravings show up for the rest of the day. Because that's really the important data we want to gather from this breakfast experiment. Does that sound good? So we have a little accountability piece now attached to this goal. Sally's going to pay attention to, after she has breakfast, does her hunger and cravings, do they change for the rest of the day? And she'll report back and say, yes, they did, or no, they didn't. And you'll continue to kind of move through this goal from there. You need to be okay with getting them to your ultimate end goal eventually, in tiny baby steps. So break this task down into the smallest doable step for your client. And get to the root of why Sally feels such friction at the idea of breakfast, right? Because that's the other thing too. Why doesn't Sally want to eat breakfast? Is it because she's been kind of indoctrinated into intermittent fasting and she's been reading all the books and following all the podcasts and she thinks, well, if I'm supposed to intermittent fast because women are supposed to do that, maybe she picked that up. And that's where you want to lean on your coaching skills. Is that working? Could there be another way? A lot of times people don't want to eat breakfast because they have their biggest meal at night before bed and then they snack in front of the TV all night. So maybe, bringing that to light. Or maybe, she just doesn't have time in the morning. Is time the barrier? What's the barrier? I really do believe that one of our greatest skills and assets as health coaches is barrier identification and helping our clients navigate and overcome barriers. Just really being problem solvers. I don't have the solution for every barrier that my client presents with because they have barriers that I don't have in my life. We're different people. So I can just get very curious about the barrier. What, if any, barrier might get in the way of you having breakfast on Sunday? And it might be time. It might be a lack of belief that it will work. It will work, in air quotes. It might be not having any ideas of what to eat for breakfast or just having been indoctrinated to fasting. And let's solve that barrier. That's a big part of what our conversation is with our clients. So we have to get client buy-in, in a manner of speaking, right? So this is where the partnership and the idea of compromise, human-to-human interaction, right, is about meeting in some version of the middle and allowing your client to kind of steamroll you because you're a self-proclaimed people pleaser. It's not serving your client. And you, Annalie, are an expert with an amazing solution that's going to help this client. And you're really kind of in some ways, quote unquote, obligated to stick that flag in the ground and not waver on it. If this is a proprietary foundational pillar of your program, you can't waver on it. When I do business coaching with our students, I get them to come up with the foundational pillars of their program. So it might be eat breakfast, go to bed at 10 p.m. every night, and it could be one other thing, whatever, insert thing here, take 10,000 steps, drink 48 ounces of water. It could, you might have a longevity piece. You might have a circadian rhythm piece. You might have some kind of biohack. Maybe you like to use this continuous glucose monitor to get data. Maybe you want your clients to have an intuitive experience. Like there's foundational pillars and we all kind of have similar but different ones. Like truly most health coaches have similar foundational pillars. There's usually some nutrition pillar. There's usually some movement pillar, some lifestyle pillars like sleep and stress. You might have a data thing if you're kind of in the data realm, quantified self kind of realm. When we have foundational pillars to our program, we can't waver on them. We have to anchor to them. That's really crucial to establish yourself as an expert and a leader. This is great questions today. Now I only have time for a few more. I had one from Daryl who asks, is 70 too old to start a coaching business? And I think you probably know what my answer is. The answer is no. You're not too old. Why would you be too old? Do 70-year-olds need help with their health? I know a couple 70-year-olds that aren't that healthy. In fact, I think most of the 70-year-olds I know aren't that healthy. I think Mark Sisson's the only 70-year-old I know of that's healthy. But I mean, when I think about, my aging parents, for example, when my dad was in his 70s, which he's not anymore. But man, I wish he'd had a 70-year-old health coach to help him be a great 70-year-old so he could be an awesome 80-year-old. I mean, heck, this is an absolutely growing demographic. Anybody out there who's an expert in helping 70-year-olds be healthy, it's boom time. That was an inadvertent baby boomer joke. But it's boom time. If you're working with aging populations, they're not doing well. And if you're a 70-year-old aspiring health coach, my hunch is, Daryl, you're probably doing pretty good. You probably figured some stuff out. You probably figured some stuff out in your 60s or 70s that's helping you to thrive. And now you want to help 60 and 70-year-olds. And they could really use that help. Man, that would be so rewarding. I think when I think about working with these aging populations, I guess some of the struggles that you could come up against are, well, there can be financial barriers, right? So if they're on maybe some type of social assistance, retirement type fund, I'm kind of regionalizing myself here because I'm Canadian and I don't know how retirement funding works, social, programs work in different countries, but maybe on fixed income, I guess is what I'm saying. Fixed income, elderly people might have disease states, managing through medications. They might have really reduced appetites, especially protein appetite. folks in that demographic really trust their doctor, which is good. Ultimately, hopefully they are advocating for themselves with the doctor too. When I say they trust their doctor, I'm not mad about people trusting their doctor, but sometimes what I found, especially with my aging parents, and I'm sure many of us can relate to this, is that they implicitly trust the doctor without getting a word in edgewise or without advocating for themselves. So I think there's an opportunity for like advocacy with the doctor, helping this aging population eat more protein, lift weights, strength train, get stronger bone density, lean body mass. Oh, the opportunities are endless, Daryl. Now, Daryl's question was, is it too old to start a coaching business? And I kind of went off on this tangent about how 70-year-olds need health coaches. Now, is 70 years old too old for a person to start a health coaching business? I don't think so. But you might be feeling maybe left behind on things like social media. I don't know. But by the way, there's tons of 70-year-olds going viral on TikTok, if that's your bag. The marketing efforts in the modern entrepreneurial space are quite in the social media realm. So that could be a little bit of a discomfort. But maybe you have a community in your local region that you can anchor to. I don't think 70 is too old to start anything, quite honestly. At least I hope not. I plan to be really productive when I'm 70, and I think you should be too, Daryl. All right, well, those are all the questions I had for today, and they're great. Can't wait to get more questions from you because these are awesome conversations. Thank you so much. This podcast was brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute. To learn more about how to become a successful health coach, get in touch with us by visiting primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or if you're already a successful health coach, practitioner, influencer, or thought leader with a thriving business and an interesting story, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us at hello@primalhealthcoach.com and let us know why we need to interview you for Health Coach Radio. Thanks for listening.